In this video we are going to study a very interesting master game in which we will see how Black will fight with the king's Indian defense against the Saemisch system. The game started with the move c4, the English opening. Black responded with knight f6, a very flexible move. Black developed his king's knight on its natural square and took control of the e4 square. White played knight c3, developing his queen's knight and increasing control of the central squares. Black played g6, with the idea of developing the king's bishop by fianchetto. White played d4, placing a pawn in the center. Black responded with bishop g7, developing his king's bishop and preparing to castle. Now, White played e4, occupying the center with his pawns. White has already formed a powerful pawn center and is threatening to advance with e5, which would give him an advantage. So, Black responded with d6, taking control of the e5 square, to prevent the white pawn from advancing. White played f3 with the idea of using the Saemisch system against the king's Indian defense. White's plan is to develop his pieces with bishop e3, queen d2, long castling, knight g to e2 and prepare an attack on the king side. Now, Black did not want to castle in order not to offer the opponent any attacking objectives. Instead, he played knight c6, developing the queen's knight and preparing the break in the center with e5. If White now plays d5, advancing in the center and attacking the opponent's knight, Black can respond with knight e5. And in case of, for example, f4 attacking the knight again, Black can simply retreat his knight to the d7 square. The large diagonal of dark squares has been opened and the bishop on g7 will be a very strong piece. Black will be able to attack in the center with c6 and has very good game. In the game, after the move knight c6, White developed his queen bishop to the e3 square. Black replied to a6, with the idea of preparing the attack on the queen side with b5, to open the game in that area in case the white king castles on the long side. White played knight g to e2, developing his king's knight. Black replied rook to b8, preparing the attack on the queen side with b5. White played knight c1, maneuvering with the knight to perhaps bring it to the b3 square. Black played e5, placing a pawn in the center and attacking the opponent's pawn center. If White now captures on e5, Black recaptures with the knight and has very good play. He could continue with moves like bishop e6, kingside castling, etc. and would have no problem. In the game, White advanced his d5 pawn to keep his pawn center together and gain space in the center. Now Black's knight on c6 is attacked. So, Black played knight d4 to defend his knight and place it on a strong square in the center. If White now captures the knight with bishop takes d4. Black responds with e takes d4. And after queen takes d4. White has won a pawn but has lost his dark squared bishop. Black can castle and then can continue with moves like c6, to attack the opponent's pawn center. His bishop on g7 will be unopposed and Black has a very good game. In the game, after the move knight d4, White played knight 1 to e2, returning with the knight to attack the black knight in the center. Black played c5, reinforcing the knight's defense on d4. White captured en passant. And after b takes c6, the b file is open and the rook on b8 is very happy. White played knight takes d4, eliminating the pesky black knight in the center. The game continued e takes d4. Bishop takes d4. White has won a pawn but now Black played rook takes b2, regaining the material and invading with his rook on the second rank. Now White played knight b5, with the idea of cutting off the black rook's retreat and trying to capture it. However, Black responded with knight takes e4, a real bombshell. Black eliminates the opponent's central pawn and at the same time frees up the action for the bishop on g7. If White now captures on g7, Black plays queen a5 check and has a decisive attack, since the white king cannot move. And after knight c3, black plays knight takes c3 and the white queen is attacked. It is not possible to capture the knight on c3 because the white king would be checkmated. And in case of queen c1 to defend the queen, black plays knight e4 giving a discovered check and black wins. Since king d1 is not possible because of knight f2 checkmate. And in case of bishop c3, black plays queen takes c3 check. And after queen takes c3, knight takes c3. Black has an extra piece and his advantage is decisive. It is also not possible to capture the knight on e4, because black plays queen a5 check and wins anyway. In the game after the move knight takes e4, white played bishop takes b2 capturing the black rook. Black played queen a5 check and has a decisive attack. Now king e2 is of no use, because black captures the bishop on b2. After for example rook b1 to defend the rook. Black plays takes b5 capturing the white knight and wins. For example, queen e1 trying to exchange queens, bishop c3 follows winning. In case of rook takes b2 then follows knight c3 check and the white queen is lost. And in case of f takes e4, black plays bishop g4 check and then captures the queen and wins. In the game, after the move queen a5, white played knight c3 to defend against check. Black played knight takes c3. Now, queen d2 is not possible, as black castles and the white king is in danger. For example, in case of king f2, black plays knight e4 check and the white queen is lost. In the game, after the move knight takes c3, white played bishop takes c3. Black played queen takes c3 check. After king e2, black played bishop e6 and white resigned. For example, in case of rook c1, black would play queen e5 check. After king f2, black plays bishop h6, with a decisive attack. For example, after rook c2 to defend the rook, black plays queen e3 check. And after king g3, black plays bishop f4 check. And after king h4, black plays h5, threatening g5 checkmate, which is unstoppable. A very instructive game in which we saw how white used the Saemisch system to fight against the opponent's king's Indian defense. Black avoided castling, which gave him a tempo and was able to launch a brilliant attack that gave him the victory.